to order the September 28th, 2021 meeting of the Caroline County Board of Supervisors meeting. Present tonight is Mr. Clay Forehand from Madison District, Mr. Jeff Black from Western Caroline, Mr. Jeff Seeley from Bowling Green District, Ms. Nancy Long from Port Royal, Mr. Floyd Thomas from Mattaponi, and I'm Reginald Underwood from Reedy Church. Can we all stand for invocation? Most gracious and Heavenly Father, once again we come before you, asking for your blessings this evening. Continue to guide us, bless us as we go about doing the business of the county. Heavenly Father, continue to watch over our first responders. Continue to give us peace. All blessings we ask you in your precious name. Amen. Our pledge of allegiance, please. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Opening comments, Mr. Forehand.
A couple of quick ones. One, had the opportunity to head out to the State Fair this past weekend. It was, again, it looks like a great event. My family and I had a great time. Lots of walking, lots of exercise. As part of that, the middle school's FFA club had a pretty good showing. They had a lot of animals there representing a lot of hard work by those students, both high school and middle school. So it was on a Sunday, so there's something the teachers and staff and students were all putting in work, improving their craft on the weekend. So it was good to see and a good event, and hope it continues to have good weather. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Forehand. Mr. Black.
Yeah, I wasn't, just a couple of things. I wasn't able to attend the ribbon cutting with the governor, but I mean, obviously MC Dean, that was big news for the county. So once again, that's really important for us to continue to add jobs to the county. Second thing is on a little personal level, about a year ago, I had a next door neighbor that moved in. My next door neighbors moved in. They have a 3-year-old that's turning 4 today. So I want to wish Drake Rush a happy birthday. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Mr. Seeley.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I too had spent Saturday at the fair, and the crowds are probably as big as ever. About 10% of the folks there in masks, but everybody seems to be having a really good time. And like Mr. Forehand, I'm hoping the weather, I understand rain for this evening, but I think the rest of the week looks pretty good. I want to remind everybody that Harvest Festival is the 16th of October, so it's coming. And Friday night is homecoming for the Caroline High School. It's a home game, it's homecoming, and they should be able to play and have a good night to do it, so I wish them all the best of luck. And last but not least, the MC Dean ribbon cutting and tour was really amazing. For folks that don't realize how much international work goes through Caroline County, it's pretty incredible to see the number of buildings and the amount of work that's being done there. But it was very impressive and a great event, and want to welcome them and thank them for picking Caroline County. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Seeley. Mrs. Long.
Well, I too went to the fair, and it is wonderful. And so far, the weather has been great. I would rather have it a little damp and a little cool than 110 degrees in the shade. So that was wonderful. And just a semi-personal note for any of you that know Mr. Emmett, Mr. Farmer up in Caroline, in the Port Royal area, who has been a stronghold figure and almost made it to be a centurion. He passed away since our last meeting, and if you did not see it in the paper, his graveside funeral will be tomorrow at 2 o'clock at Lakeview. So we will miss him greatly and hope that family members and community members will step up and fill his big shoes. So thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Long. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a few brief comments. I asked county staff if they would add the solar ordinance to the county website, which they did. I think a lot of us are starting to get calls about what to do with solar, so I thought it was important for folks to see what the actual ordinance was. In addition, I've also asked staff to put the broadband strategic plan and the universal coverage plan on our website, so if somebody could help Mr. Sadler do that, I appreciate it. And also, if we could put the treasurer's letter for the tax relief on our website too, that might help again. Because again, we're trying to make sure as many people know things as possible. I've asked Mr. Fincham to investigate a property maintenance violation in Milford, which is the old black Chevrolet building, which is again, well, I guess I shouldn't say again, but it continues to be in disrepair, and we need to do something to fix that. And I too attended the MC Dean ribbon cutting. And as Mr. Dean said, I was here 13 years ago when he first came. I was happy to welcome him, of course, to the Mattapan District. But we had the governor, several state representatives, and that really shows what an important project that was, not only to Caroline, but the entire Commonwealth. So it's a great thing. They continue to have a program with the high schools to bring students in, and with their expansion, I'm sure we'll do more of that. So again, a great project for Caroline. And last but not least, we won't meet again before October 10th, which is Sunday voting in Caroline from 12 to 5. And that's it for me, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Just two comments from myself. I went to the MC Dean ribbon cutting ceremony, and I was thoroughly impressed with not only the operation, but really just how down to earth the Dean family is. Just good people, and that's hard to find in today's world, where people are just good old people. It was good to have conversation and be real. So certainly glad the governor was. I got a chance to talk with the governor. Certainly had spoke about it, but just good to see an operation of that magnitude here in the county, and just shows that sometimes we think an industry may be uncomfortable with some of our residents, but it certainly does quite well for the county. My second comment is State Fair. It's been a great event. I went over Saturday, took my grandkids over, and the parking lot was full. I think the state police are doing a great job of managing traffic control. We had a little issue with the water. We had plenty of water, but the meter was telling us that there was no water at the State Fair. But thanks to Mr. Whiteman again and all the folks at the State Fair, that was rectified very quickly, and they were able to do it manually, and everything is running quite well. I think you'll be surprised at the numbers for this year, but I'm sure we'll have some great numbers from the State Fair. Thank you.
Mr. Underwood?
Yes.
I will comment that the radio ads that I've heard have said the State Fair in Caroline County.
Yeah.
And that's the first time that I recall actually hearing that. So it was our conversations from several months ago, actually, you know, in those media blitzes, they were able to get that in there. So I think it's a great thing, honestly.
I think when Mr. Wilson, we had a conversation with State Fair, I think that was one of the major topics for Mr. Wilson, was to ensure that Caroline County was mentioned in all of the ads. So thank you, Mr. Wilson, for being upfront and pushing that forward. So I think a lot of credit goes to Mr. Wilson. Amendments to the agenda, Mr. Forehand.
My appointments are still a no-go. I'm striking out, and I would like to add one item. It's just slipped my mind. Come back to me, please. Yes, please.
We'll remove those two appointments from the agenda. Mr. Black.
No amendment.
No amendments by Mr. Black. Mr. Sealy. Mr. Sealy, no amendments. Ms. Long.
I have one appointment and I do not have that.
Okay.
So I don't know Western Carolina, if you have an appointment or not for broadband, but you don't, okay, so we can pull that one also.
So we can pull Fort Royal, Madison, and Western. Mr. Black, is that correct?
Well, I guess
Three
that
of them.
was
Okay,
it.
all three, okay. Okay. Okay, Mr. Thomas. Any amendment? Okay, I have just a couple amendments. Under presentations tonight, we have a county employee who is retiring, Martina Conley. She cannot be here tonight. So I would ask the board that we move her retirement resolution to consent agenda. Second, the county attorney has proposed a slight revision of the resolution approving the sale and conveyance of the Frog Level Volunteer Rescue, Frog Level Rescue Squad. Put it under consent agenda item D. A copy of the revised version has been provided to the board, so you should have that. And then finally, we need to remove the adoption of resolution 17-21, notice of intent to abandon school access road 9081 from the agenda. And that's at VDOT's request.
Mr. Chairman, I did remember asking the board if we could just discuss the proceeds from the sale of the Frog Level building, and where they can be set aside.
If you like, Mr. Forehand, when we get to consent agenda, if you pull that, we can discuss that then, if that's okay.
Actually, it's more of a discussion on we setting it aside for a special purpose.
Okay, so you want to add that to the agenda?
Like 8A.
All right, we can do it under 8A, is that okay? Okay, so the agenda now, we have removed the adoption of resolution 17-21. We've moved it completely. Number 3. We've moved the resolution for Martina Conley to the consent agenda. And we also have the revision to the sale of Frog Level, the sale and conveyance, and move that to consent item D. And as far as appointments go, well, I'll discuss that one. There will be no appointments for the Social Services Board. There will be no appointments for the Recreation Advisory. And Mr. Thomas would like to have a discussion about the Broadband Committee, which when we get to appointments, I'll just go ahead and allow him to discuss it then. So if I can have a motion to approve that agenda that's amended.
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
There's a motion to approve the agenda.
Second.
And a second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. We'll now go to presentation and reports. And we have one tonight, and that's from Davenport and Company regarding taxation, tax exempt and equipment leasing financing. Good evening.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. Good to see you again. So we have sent out a request for proposals to take care of the 2022 budget equipment leasing. And if you'll turn in the presentation on page 1, you'll see the list of the projects there totaling $1.45 million, the largest of which is the fire engine, the ambulance, and the sheriff's vehicles are the other large items that are in there. I'll see if I can get this to go. If you just go ahead and change the slide to page 1, it's not working. I see the battery looks like it's, I don't know if it's just not. There you go. Oh, no, go to page 1 if you would, please. one of the things we did when we sent the request out was there are various lives here. Most of them are short at 4 years, the ambulance at 10 years, and the fire engine at 15 years. So we asked the banks to give us an option A where there are different rates for each, but we also asked for an option B, which is if you just want to bid one rate for everything, give us that as well. What we found out of the 8 proposals that we received, CNF Bank came in with the lowest rate, not only on the option A, but option B. We ran the numbers, and option B comes out the lowest at 1.25%. On the next slide, page 3, just the details. Basically, it's a single lease, 15 years, 1.25. It is fixed for the entire time. From a prepayment, it is callable, but it does carry a penalty for the first 3 years if we're trying to do it for refinancing. Can be negotiated if we were trying to refinance it with CNF. It's callable at par if refinanced after the first 3 years, and they have no fees. So our recommendation is to move forward with CNF. Pretty straightforward. It's the lowest rate. It's fixed for 15 years. Most importantly, it's fixed at this point because, as many of you might have seen, interest rates have been climbing over the last several days. 10-year Treasury today is up at 1.55. It was just down at about 1.25 not too long ago. So timing-wise, it's a good thing we went and got this done now rather than wait to the spring when rates may be a little higher. Essentially, we're asking you tonight to approve the resolution, and that will allow us to go forward and get this closed by October 19th. So with that, Mr. Chairman, happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, sir. Mr. Forehand.
Mr. Rogers, just to confirm, as on the very first page, we are going to stick with the lower terms.
Yes, so what happens is we will, within our software, all those that said 4 years will be paid out only over 4 years.
Okay.
And then the ambulance will be paid out over 10 years. And then so what you're going to see is a debt service schedule that starts out a little bit larger and then it goes down over time.
Okay. All right. Sounds good. Mr. Kelly, I see one fire engine on here. I thought we had 2 in the budget. We had an engine, I think an engine 1 and a Carmel Church Station engine, a commercial chassis. Is that correct?
Last year, that was in 21, this is 22.
Oh, okay.
We already borrowed the money for that.
Okay.
Yeah, this is
for something that
actually-
was sticking in my brain, so just making sure.
What engine is this, Chief? 2, this will be engine 2's replacement.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Forehand. Mr. Black. Mr. Seeley.
I have no questions, Mr. Chairman.
Mrs. Long.
No, sir.
Mr. Thomas.
I just want to clarify something that Mr. Rogers said. These are all vehicles we're getting for $1.4 million. You said something about 15-year term, but that's not what we are doing. We're doing 4-year term, almost like a regular car lease.
So it's all blended together. So essentially, they bid it as an average life, if you will.
Mm-hmm.
So all the projects except for the ambulance and fire engine will be paid out over 4 years.
Right.
The fire engine will be 15 years, the ambulance over 10.
The fire engine and the ambulance have a life expectancy of 20 years or something in that range. So
Exactly. It'll go long.
because it didn't make sense to buy cars on a 15-year plan.
Exactly.
And they'll be gone in 4 years. So
That's
just wanted to make
exactly
sure
right.
that was clear. And you said 15, and I'm sure people listening said, why are we
Right.
doing that? So I want to make sure it was clear.
Yeah, and you can see on the page 2, like CNF gave us a rate of 0.95 for all the 4 years, 1.25 for the 10 years, and 1.5 for the 15 years. But when we ran those numbers, it was better to go with the 125 for the entire group, which is based on an average basis.
All right. Mr. Rogers, certainly I just want to say thank you to Davenport and Company for constantly looking at ways that we can save money and making sure that we're getting the biggest bang for our buck. So we certainly appreciate
Yes, sir.
all that you're doing, and I can say excellent job.
Thank you. Our timing has been good. Unfortunately, rates seem to be climbing. I don't know if this is going to sustain or not, but we'll have to think of new tricks down the road the next time we're doing things.
Well, you stayed on top of it, and that's what's important to us, so thank you.
Yes, sir.
All right, board members,
Do we need to adopt a resolution for that? I'm looking for it so I could. This is the one that
No,
was
that's not-
changed.
no.
This is
He
number
changed-
one
he
on our
changed the
table.
Conveyance of the, no, that's not it.
The resolution's on the table, though, correct? Number
All right,
one.
yeah, Mr. Steely, if you're ready, I'm gonna second it, so just move the adoption of resolution.
I make a motion, we adopt the resolution for the Board of Supervisors of Caroline County for approving equipment lease financing from CNF,
Second.
option
Oh,
B.
Second.
So there's a motion and a proper second that we adopt the, resolution for financing. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Again, thank you, Mr. Davenport. Thank you, Mr. Rogers, I should say. We'll move on to the consent
No
agenda.
appointments.
I'm sorry, we'll move on to appointments. Although there are no appointments regarding the Caroline County Broadband Advisory Committee, Mr. Thomas has comments.
Yes, thank you.
You want to make regarding that? Yes.
Mr. Chairman, at our last meeting, last Monday, the Broadband Advisory Committee looked at the makeup of the committee, and one of the things we were requesting, and Mr. Seeley was not at that meeting, so if he had been, we'd both be making that same request, but we would like to request that there's at least a member from each voting district. We have some members who haven't been able to show up, so we're trying to replace those. We're also trying to find members that have some technical experience. That's not a prerequisite, but
Helpful.
the more experience other people have, the more new ideas we have in as far as the committee. And the board, the advisory board will meet again on the third Monday in October. So we actually have a meeting on the second Tuesday. So if board members have an appointment, that would be great. The meetings are about an hour and a half. And I think that's all I need to say about that. But we'd like to have somebody from each district. It might be good to have somebody who doesn't have access so they can really appreciate the pain that folks are going through. But it doesn't have to be. So if you guys could get those appointments next month, we'd appreciate it.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas.
That was it. Thank you, sir.
Any questions?
Actually, I was absent on the work session on broadband, but I was reading the article that was published last week. And the number of 60% of the county being without internet access seemed strange to me, because I did hear that after we get these next two rounds of grant money, that we could be up to close to 80% of the county with coverage. And those percentages do not work out.
I think that article was wrong. It was 60% have access now.
Okay.
And then when we win those grants, we'll be up to 84 or 85%, somewhere in that neighborhood.
Okay, that's what was in my mind, and that's what I was actually researching when an ad popped up.
Yeah.
Anyway, that I wanted to clarify for my own benefit and for the community's benefit as well. So
Now that's a good point. And just to clarify, for me personally, Atlantic Broadband goes by my house, but I do not have Atlantic Broadband. I am counted as one of those who have access. So
Right.
that may be true, especially in the lakes, large places with a lot of people. Even though the wire goes through, you have access, but you may not be connected.
right, if someone that has Comcast,
They're
they
considered
have
connected.
they have
Right.
access, whether they use it or not,
Yes.
or Atlantic Broadband, or what are the providers that we have in the county.
Or
So,
DSL, like the 7 people in Bowling Green have.
Right.
Because there's
Okay.
not a lot of those, and they won't expand. So
thank you for clarifying that, because I was perplexed a bit by the number. So thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Forehand, Mr. Thomas. Mr. Black?
Mr. Thomas, I've got a quick question. So 60% have it now, and then with the current Batty grant that we just awarded, we'll go up to 84, or the grants we applied?
the grants we've applied for 2022.
Okay. All right, so the grant we're getting now is like the one that we've been awarded. That makes us at 60?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
And that's we have
Yeah.
about 10,500 housing units in the county. And we're adding less than 500, so it's hard to get
No, it's not.
20%.
out of that
On the,
number.
on the two that we applied, it's more than 500. It's
Yeah.
more
It's
than
close to
15.
1,500
More
with
than
what we
that,
just applied
17
for.
All right, that makes more sense.
And-
361.
It's more than that.
And the
It's
two, well, it's
17 and
1,000
361.
something in Dawn and
1,700.
It's like, yeah, I think it's 12 in Dawn, right?
Uh,
12 in Dawn?
Yeah,
Yeah, right, 2,000.
1,700 in Dawn and
Yeah.
361 on the Jericho Road, Anderson Mill. So that's 2,000 total.
Yeah.
All right, my number from Dawn was lower. Okay, thank you.
Okay.
And I've been to Ladysmith Village recently and saw the vast amount of houses there. Those will all have access because it's there already. So we're gonna have more like that. And the same with Brookwoods. Seems like these folks add connections where there are large developments.
Although I did have an individual that built a house 4 months ago in Lake Caroline, and Comcast took them 4 months to run it about 250 feet. So there is some reluctance and some holes out there within the network that get filled slowly, but hopefully we can encourage them to keep going.
Yeah, that's one of the things the committee's kind of struggling with is the last mile or two of projects we're working on. So we're gonna work on that. But okay.
Mrs. Long?
And if I could just say, anyone who watches this video or anyone here who knows someone that has experience and knowledge on this topic, please don't wait for us to call you because it may not be our forte, but since it's not mine. Call if you're interested and offer your services because I would appreciate that because we want to get a good committee together because we want this done in a efficient, quick way, and we want you to be part of it. So I would appreciate anyone who would really like to be involved in this committee to contact me. They meet once a month here, and as they said, about an hour and a half meeting, and you can Zoom also. So please, if you are interested, contact me. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Long. Again, this is a great opportunity for citizens to give input and be part of the building of our broadband as we move forward and discussing priorities. So we certainly are looking for community input to ensure that we're hearing everyone's voice. Next is the consent agenda. Item A, approval of minutes. B, approval of warrants. Item C, request from treasurer to dispose of old tax records. Item D, a resolution to approve the sale and conveyance of the property, the real property, Frog Level Volunteer Rescue Squad. Remember, Mr. Emerson, I discussed the revision that we all should have regarding item D. And Mr. Foran, did I need to add something?
We were gonna add 8A.
8A, correct. So that's all I have for consent agenda. Anyone want to discuss the consent agenda? Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, and I moved the retirement of Mrs. Martina Conley to the consent agenda, her resolution. So that was the change. Right. So those are the 5 items. If so, can I get a motion to approve the consent agenda?
So moved.
Motion by Mr. Black to approve the consent agenda. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second by Mrs. Long. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? All right, we do have a closed session. We're gonna go into closed session. And if I could get Mr. Black to read the resolution.
I move that this board convene in closed session meeting pursuant to the prospective business exemption of section 2.2 3711A 5 of the Code of Virginia to discuss a potential economic development project in the county about which no previous public announcement has been made.
second.
There's a motion and a proper second that we go into closed session. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? We will now go into closed session. We'll be back out as quickly as possible. But certainly we can't start public hearing until 7:30. But certainly we may take on a couple other agenda items between that time. Thank you. We're going to reconvene this September 28th, 2021 Caroline Board of Supervisors meeting. Get a motion to, yeah, can I get a motion to come out of closed session?
So moved.
Is there a second? Proper second and motion and second come out of closed session. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Mr. Forehand, you so,
He's got to read the motion.
Would read the motion.
I move that the Caroline County Board of Supervisors certify that to each of the board members' knowledge, only public business matters lawfully exempted from the open meeting requirement by Virginia law were discussed in closed meeting to which this certification applies. And only such public business matters were identified in the motion convening the closed session were heard, discussed, or considered by the board.
Second.
Well, there's a motion and a proper second that we certify. Mr. Forehand, do you so certify?
I so certify.
Mr. Black, you so certify?
So certify.
Mr. Sealy, you so certify?
Mr. Chairman, I so certify.
Mrs. Long, you so certify?
I so certified.
Mr. Thomas, you so certify?
I so certify.
And I so certify as well. All right, we're gonna, we can't do closing comment till 7:30. We have a couple other agenda items that we're gonna take up. Item 8A is a discussion about the revenue from the Frog Level Fire Department that was brought up by Mr. Forehand. So, Mr. Forehand, your question?
In discussions with Mr. Seeley, we have a sale of the previous Frog Level Volunteer Rescue Squad building coming our way. And I would like to set aside this money, at least make it so it's not part of the general fund, undesignated general fund, and we set it aside for recreation purposes.
I'd like to see it spent in Frog Level since that's where the money came from. It was part of the money raised by the volunteers there. And I would think it would be very wisely spent at the firehouse or equipment and continue to, certainly Reedy Church is growing. I would think we would spend that money in that district since they raised that money.
Can I add one thing real quick? There's nothing budgeted for that funds right now, so we'll be able to give you the net amount, even though it goes in the fund balance, you'll know what that is, and as you come up with a plan, which doesn't have to be tonight, we can't spend any of the money, so it's just a revenue, so there's nothing set aside for it in any budget, it's not appropriated, and so I think you could certainly come up with a plan to use it in a district, use it for fire department, use it for recreation in the Reedy Church District, whatever. But we're not going to suddenly have any ability to spend it just because we received the wire transfer. So
right,
I
I didn't expect that. It was just more of a we got it coming, and I'd like to just set it aside since it's kind of found money on our part. That if we can do some good with it, that's outside of the normal budget, then that's where I'd like to go with it.
We can put it in a reserve account, so it'll be sitting there until y'all decide what you want to do with it at some later date.
Yeah, I have ideas of where I'd like to spend it, but I was not prepared.
To talk. Yeah, we weren't prepared to have any ideas moving forward.
Discuss it, but when the proper time comes, certainly.
All right, we can discuss it in the future. Like I said, I just wanted to. That was a thought that I had when last meeting, and we realized it was coming. So.
Thank you, Mr. Ford. Any other board comments about the revenues from Frog Level? All right. Can we go ahead and do item number 6 regarding the text amendment 04/2021 through text amendment 06/2021, the car wash, agenda item number 6.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, if you will recall, you had your first reading on this item at the September 14th meeting, which you continued that first reading to tonight to address a couple of issues that were discussed at that meeting. You have an amended set of text amendments, which I believe address the issues that were raised by the board concerning the reuse of water And we also addressed an issue with about the type of soap that or cleaning materials that they could be used to ensure that we didn't get a heavy load on the wastewater treatment plant.
All right, board, in your, I don't see that. Yeah,
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
yes, Mr. Thomas.
Mr. Fincham, regarding the changes or additions we made, item number 8, and I take it 8 and 9 are the bold ones we added?
Yes, sir.
Okay, 8 says water recycling devices shall be installed and utilized which meet industry best practices standards and shall be maintained to ensure proper operation. Do we know what percentage of water reused is based on best standards? Or should we put a number in here?
If you put a number, I would suggest that that be a minimum, say 30%, something like that. Depending on the size of the operation and the practice that's used, there are some that are actually, for the most part, closed system, where the water is filtered, cleaned,
Right.
and then recirculated back for use again. You could certainly say that you want it to be a closed system. Even those are going to require some type, some supplemental water from the county system at some
Yeah.
point in time. So I would say if you want to put a percentage in, that you look at somewhere around, say, 30%. There are varying figures out there depending on the type of unit used.
All right, and we don't necessarily know, and I guess we can't determine at this stage what a particular user would use as their system. There may be a system that's theoretically a closed system is not totally closed because there's some water that's lost, period.
Yes.
But do we have any idea what the industry standard is, or?
There are various standards depending on the type of equipment. Okay, I didn't find one that said 80% or 100% or there's an average. In my research, I was not able to determine, say, an average per reuse. A lot of that is tied, like you said, to a particular brand is used, and I didn't think it was appropriate to get down into the weeds and to dictate a specific standard.
All right, one last question is, we don't have anything in this ordinance that would reference a county drought. If there were a drought in the county, I know we do, but I mean, we do water restrictions.
Yes.
We have done that before. So in the event of a county drought, would this particular application have to abide by water restrictions, or?
That would be subject to your locally declared emergency related to the drought.
Okay.
Which you have done before. You've actually, where you've adopted water restrictions, it applies across the board.
Okay, but we didn't have an actual car wash ordinance before, so I guess that ordinance would say a particular car wash or all car washes have to now restrict their use.
Yes, if you had an issue with that, I think you would cover that under your declaration.
Okay.
For your drought.
Because we
Mr.
did
Fincham,
prohibit car washing during the one drought that we did, and I thought it affected
We did.
all car washing.
Yes.
Mr. Fincham, so let me just make sure I'm clear. Based on the type of car wash that's there would be dependent on the type of recycling device that's part of the car wash, correct?
Yes, sir.
Would that be regulated, or should that be regulated by the number of gallons or the water usage? Or what's your thought process in terms of how we would regulate the size and usage of that car wash to make sure that we're
I think that's where the type of system comes into play.
Mhm.
In researching it, there are different systems that are designed for varying amounts of water usage. Okay, so if you are using 50,000 gallons a day as an example, there are systems that are actually designed for a 50,000 gallon per day wash facility that recycle the water and clean it and recirculate it back into the use or the wash or rinse cycle. So the types of facilities, from what I can tell, are tied to the volume of use of the facility.
Now, we have a number of car washes already in the county. Do we know if they have a recycle process for water? I mean, there's one in Carmel Church at the
One at-
gas station. There's one in, I think Mr. Forehand's district across from
Yeah.
Belmont, across from.
I did not go and check to see whether they used recycling. And I didn't ask Mr. Sheevel what the actual usage of those facilities was. Because we can't retroactively go back and.
Well, I
require-
understand.
Yeah.
I'm just wondering what's happening with those two facilities. I doubt very seriously if they have a recycling.
No, those are older facilities.
Right.
And I don't recall when the facility at the station at Carmel Church was built, that there was a recycling component when that went through the site plan process. You also had the truck wash at the Flying J.
Correct.
That I know is subject to a permit from utilities as well. But I don't know the volume from that facility.
Thank you, Mr. Fincham. Board, have any other questions? Ms. Long? So I guess we need a motion to take this, so that we all agree, take it to the first, read the public hearing. So can I get a motion for that? Do I need a motion? So if I can get a motion to take this to, the public hearing,
So moved.
there's a motion to move this, text amendment to our first reading. Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The ayes have it. Thank you, Mr. Fincham. It is now 7:30. 7:30 is our time for public comment. It's an opportunity for the citizens to come before us and discuss any issue that's not either on our agenda as a public hearing or anticipated being a public hearing within the next 60 days. This is not a debate. It's for the public to come up and give us their comments. All comments should be directed to the board, not to any individual member of the board. At this time, I will now declare public comment session open. Is there anyone else who would like to speak during public comment? Please come forward.
Everyone, my name's Cassandra, and I,
Cassandra,
Ziegler, yeah?
Deidre,
Ziegler, Zeigler.
okay, Ziegler. And Cassandra, could you give me your voting district?
You're asking tough questions there, Mr. Underwood. I think it's Chickahominy or something close, but let's just say I live right down the road, and those bumble strips are still bugging me. And I haven't had any word on whether there's going to be a survey to check that out. I have no clue, but I will vote early.
Ms. Ziegler, I didn't recognize you. Good evening.
No, that's because I got my hair up and I'm a hot mess.
She's my district.
But all is good. All is good. I'm very much enjoying Caroline County. I just am not enjoying the disturbance. I honestly do not believe that I sleep through the night as I should, because there's such a disturbance when a truck or a vehicle goes over the rumble strips. That's my only concern, and I will try to make it brief and bring that to your attention from, time to time. And if VDOT ever should show up and there's some progress made on that matter, I would appreciate it.
Well, Ms. Ziegler, let me say, I know I'm not supposed to comment, but you are in my district. So you're in the Reedy Church District, just for the record. And it's regarding traffic on Route 301.
I'm trying to keep track.
That's okay. Thank you.
Reedy Church. I will not come to this table again without having that solidified in my head.
That's okay.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Ms. Ziegler. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak during public comment?
Alan Reese, Port Royal District. First of all, Ms. Long, I want to thank you for answering my phone call the other day and getting that issue squared away. Greatly appreciated. Any of the other board members that had anything to do with that, thank you. Given that I was able to speak to her, she does need to stay on the board. She's a very fine lady and deserves to be here. The other issue, we still strongly disagree with building a new fire station. If you can't staff what's already available in the county, what makes you guys think you can staff a new station? Just because it's in a more populated area doesn't mean you're going to be able to get the funding to put paid personnel in. Doesn't mean you're going to get the volunteers to want to come out and show up day in, day out. Focus on what you already have, make that better before you try to add on to what you guys already are having trouble staffing. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak during public comment? Is there anyone else who'd like to speak during public comment? Seeing no one coming forth, last call. Is there anyone else who'd like to speak during public comment? Seeing and hearing no one, public comment period is closed.
Mr. Chairman. When Ms. Ziegler spoke, or whatever it was, 2 meetings ago, I actually put out a social media message, question, comment, and oddly enough, something that I never really thought would be an issue, that she's not the only one that has issues with the rumble strips on the side of the roads near their homes. And there are actually areas, because we have friends all in the Northeast, they actually started filling them in the Northeast because they were such a noise issue for people that live there. They're like, we don't want them, please get rid of them. And those states, so I'm saying it like Vermont, New Hampshire, started filling them in. So anyway, just a data point.
Thank you, Mr. Forehand. We will move on to agenda item number 4. That is special exception 02-2021, Caroline Development LLC owner, Hidden Farm Estate LLC applicant. Mr. Fincham.
Mr. Chairman, members of your board, your one and only public hearing tonight, as you said, is SPEX 02-2021. Requesting a special exception permit in accordance with Article 17, Section 13, and Article 17, Section 16, which is your development standards waiver in a residential district, subject to special exception permit approval. The subject property contains approximately 64.17 acres of land, more or less, and is designated in the comprehensive plan as low-density residential, with a density of 1 to 4 dwelling units per acre. The requested use is to reduce the minimum lot size from 15,000 square feet to a minimum of 6,600 square feet, and to permit an increase in the overall number of building lots from 112 to 187. The county zoning regulations allow for the granting of a special exception permit in order to reduce the minimum lot size in any residential zoning district in the county. In this case, the R1 zoning has a minimum lot size of 15,000 square feet. If approved, this rezoning or this special exception request would reduce that minimum lot size down to 6,600 square feet. The resulting reduction in lot size would allow up to 187 units, which is still equal to the overall density allowed in the R1 zoning district with a 15,000 square foot lot. So the density would theoretically remain the same. It's not increased. It's just your lot size is modified with a special exception permit. Specific special exception standards for your consideration related to the lot size modification is Article 17, Section 13D of the county's regulations. And in addition to the regular special exception standards, there are the additional 9 standards that are set forth in the ordinance for your consideration in approving or denying a special exception permit. Those additional standards are included on page 4 of the staff report. The Planning Commission did hold a public hearing on this and did forward this with a recommendation of approval to the Board of Supervisors. The Planning Commission recommended a number of standards for the special exception request for your consideration. In addition, staff also proposed a couple of other modifications for your consideration as part of your public hearing tonight. With that, I'll address any questions that the board may have related to this application.
Thank you, Mr. Fincher. Before I open up public hearing, Mr. Forehand, you had your hand.
Mr. Finch, you indicated the density is the same. The lot size hasn't grown, and the number.
That's correct.
And the number of houses has gone up by 75. How does that not affect the density?
If you take 43,560 square feet, 1 acre, divided by the 15,000 square foot minimum lot size, it gives you a density of, I calculated this, but about 2.8 dwelling units per acre. When you look at the number they're requesting, it still meets that density based upon those calculations.
It's not the same density, but it's below the threshold density.
That's correct.
Okay, I was confused by the language. Okay. Thank you.
Can I ask that same question, if I may?
Yes, Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, because I was kind of stuck like Mr. Forehand on the density question, and I tried to do the math, but 15,000 square feet times 112 is 1.68 million.
That's what their original design actually showed that, yes, sir.
So if they go down to 9533, yeah, they go down to 9533 times 187, it's actually 1.7 hundred thousand. So it's a little bit different.
The actual yield is greater,
Right.
but in terms of your potential density in the R1 zoning district,
Right.
it does not exceed that.
So there is some open space that was going to be used that is no longer going to be used.
No,
Smaller
actually, I think it was mostly in larger lots.
Okay. All right. Thank you, sir.
All right, any other questions before I open it up? Ms. Long?
Mr. Fincham, can you tell me, is there any particular technical reason for us to make this change other than, I would want to say, profit margin? But why now? And when was this development approved? Because it was before I got here, I think.
It was before I got here. The original Bridlewood subdivision was approved in the early 70s. Of that original approval, I believe about 53 houses have already been built. So the special exception request is on the residue of the undeveloped portion of the original subdivision.
On the map we got in our package, was it designated as to where there are lots? Not, because I missed it, where there were houses and where there
If
weren't.
you actually look at the plan or the site plan that was submitted, you can see the lots to the west or left side of the development. So
Lots to the left side.
Mr.
You
Finch?
talking the ones that are just blank,
pardon?
the ones that are just blank, Steve?
Yes, ma'am. Those are the existing lots in Bridlewood subdivision
That already have houses on them.
that already have houses on them. Yes, ma'am. And then the other lots a little bit further to the left are in Lake Landor.
Over here. Thank you.
Mr. Finch?
Other questions by board members before I open it up? Yes,
One-
Mr. Foran.
I just saw this, looking at the map, looking at the notes, and it talks about setbacks, and it
Yes.
has a setback of 2 foot for a side yard. Is that-
Yes.
Is that anywhere else in the county right now?
Um,
I know my house is probably 12, 15 feet from the next house, and that seems tight to me, but 2 feet seems pretty small.
2 feet is narrow. There are, in those cases, they actually have different building standards related to the fire rating of the walls. So there are different construction standards that come into play.
I mean, you can't even, it's hard to get a push mower in 2
That would
feet.
be difficult. So, that's something that you can look at, and if you think that needs to be a greater setback, then we can certainly incorporate that.
Thank you.
I will say that the Ladysmith Village design standards actually allow down to a 2-foot setback.
Really?
We don't have, I don't think there are any situations where that's actually the case.
Okay, the townhomes are 0, but.
You're close.
Yeah. All right, thank you.
All right, I know the applicant is here. I'm going to open up public comment and then give the applicant a chance to speak. So I'm going to open up public comment regarding public hearing. Thank you, Mr. Thomas. Public hearing for special exception 02-2021 Caroline Development LLC, owner Hidden Valley Estates LLC applicant. The public hearing is now open. Anyone wishing to speak regarding this matter, please come forward. Is there anyone who'd like to speak regarding the public hearing for Caroline Development LLC, Hidden Valley Estates applicant? Is there anyone who'd like to speak regarding this matter?
Mr. Chairman, is the applicant here?
I thought the applicant was here.
Yeah. Would the applicant like to speak?
Would you like to speak? Yes, oh, yes. Maybe it wasn't clear.
I apologize for the confusion there. I just want to give everyone a chance to speak first. Okay, my name is Justin Boynton. I live 154 South Main Street in Bowling Green. We're partnered with Marilyn Herron, who's also present. Our engineer, Dan Webb, is also present as well. And so just as was discussed, and I can see the confusion, there's a certain density that would be allowed by right. Years ago, there was a subdivision that was proposed that had less density. The overall issue is just how do you use the square footage in these parcels? Are they all allocated to lots, or can we develop this more efficiently? And completely understand your perspective on profitability when it comes to development. There ought to be a trade-off. So the community ought to get something if we're able to develop this more efficiently. It ought to be safer. It ought to have a higher quality of living within the subdivision. So just out of respect for your time to briefly address those points. So concerning safety, with the special exception that we're proposing, there's going to be a safe and proper entrance to the entire Bridlewood subdivision. I can discuss the current entrance if you're familiar with it. There's a bit of a hill to it. It's on a bit of a turn. There's no left turn lane. There's not even a right turn lane taper at the current entrance. This new entrance that we'll have will serve as the main entrance to the entire Bridlewood subdivision, the existing portion, as well as what we're calling the South Village extension. It'll allow for greater sight distance and visibility. It'll include a complete left turn lane, as well as a right turn lane. And we'll work with VDOT and the county to have the current entrance to the Bridlewood subdivision be designated just a right turn exit and right turn entrance only location. Just ultimately, VDOT has the final say on that, but with signage, any way we can support that, we certainly will. Concerning quality of life for the residents, again, you're able to put conditions on us. One of the conditions that staff wisely recommended is sidewalks throughout. We'll certainly build those that allow safe pedestrian transit throughout our subdivision. If you're familiar with current Bridlewood construction, if you're walking your dog, you're walking in the road. Now you'd be able to do that on a sidewalk. These sidewalks will also connect to the proposed bike pedestrian access point along Ladysmith Road. We'll gladly build that if that ultimately is approved and have our sidewalks connect to it. And then two, as far as instead of having all of this land allocated to someone's lot, we'll now have over 15 acres of green space. We'll have 4 pocket parks, and we'll also have 2 equipped playgrounds. Now, concerning standards of the homes, and we have something prepared that I can hand out, or however you'd like to review that, but we'll have enforceable architectural standards that ensure attractive quality while still maintaining reasonableness. I know there had been some concern about enforceability. Just our perspective and what we're proposing is that any plans have to be approved by the Architectural Review Board before a permit's issued. But then the other key component that you'll see in Ladysmith Village is before a certificate of occupancy is issued, the completed home has to be inspected and approval given before Caroline County will issue the certificate of occupancy. So that can address that concern. Lastly, just concerning the impact to the county, again, if we use the comp plan as establishing the goals and what's best for the county, we're right in the heart of that target goal of between 1 and 4 dwellings per acre. Again, as was discussed, and I know that can seem a little bit confusing, we're not increasing the density goal that was established by the comp plan or by the zoning. As far as lot size, we have about 13 lots that would be at that minimum of 6,600 square feet. The average lot size, as you saw in your handout, is over 9,500. There's many single family, so not townhome, but single family lots in Ladysmith Village that are under 5,000 square feet. So again, on average, you're dealing with almost double the lot size throughout, while still being able to have those parks, those playgrounds, and that buffer, that 15 acres of green space and common area. So if we use kind of the minimum home price that we expect in this subdivision, we would expect real estate tax revenues to be at least $415,000. Tap fees to the utility department would be $2,013,000. And then also, as recommended by staff, and we completely accept that, there'll be a cap on the number of homes that could be constructed per year. So again, if something unexpected comes up as far as growth or that impact, there's a cap that insulates the county. So again, just I thank you very much with everything you have on your plate for your time and attention. It's my privilege to address any comments should you have them or questions.
Wellington, correct?
Boynton. But
Boynton,
yes,
thank
sir.
you. All right. I will see if there are any other comments. You can have a seat, and I'll see if anyone wants to come, and then I'll ask the board. So,
You have it close.
is there anyone who would like to speak regarding this public hearing? Is there anyone who'd like to speak regarding this public hearing? Last call, anyone who'd like to speak during this public hearing? Hearing none, this public hearing is now closed. Ms. Long, you had a question?
Yes, I do. I have a quick question. Who makes up your architectural review board?
It's appropriate for me to address that specifically, correct? Yes, okay. Yes. So we will have a qualified architectural professional, be that a licensed architect. Ultimately, the HOA would be able to designate that. We think it makes sense to have as a condition that that person not be employed by any builder, but it would be established between the developer and then the HOA documents. And we have a sample of what those standards would be that would be enforceable if you'd like me to hand that out or whatever you're comfortable with, okay?
Thank you very much. Yeah, I would like to see the standards that you're going to do. And also, Mr. Fitchum,
Mr. Parton, can you grab those?
these things sound really nice, the sidewalks, the playgrounds, the 15 acres of green space. Are those going to be written into their, to their conditions?
We can certainly add those specifically. The conditions do say that it will be developed in accordance with the development plan that was submitted. So that development plan has the sidewalks, for example, identified on the plan. So it's our position that they would have to install the sidewalks to comply with the development plan that you all would approve.
And because this was approved so many years ago, there've been a lot of new regulations as far as stormwater, that type of thing. Are we all covered there?
Yes, ma'am. They have to comply with all the current development regs, Chesapeake Bay regulations, DEQ stormwater regulations.
Downlighting?
Yes, ma'am.
And can I get a copy of the HOA regulations?
I don't know that they have been drafted yet, but to the extent that there's a draft available, then yes, ma'am, we could get those to you.
Okay, great, thank you.
Just one.
Mr. Black?
Is Bridlewood currently, because I know some people in Bridlewood, is Bridlewood currently an HOA? The current?
I'm not aware that there's an HOA with the current
So
Bridlewood.
I guess if they built out, would the current homes be included in some sort of canopy?
They're not required to be, no.
Okay, all right, I didn't know that. All right, thank you.
So, Mr. Fincham, could I speak to Mr. Boynton just for a second?
Yes, sir.
Thanks for coming back.
Thank you.
We talked about it earlier, I know Mr. Forehand. My concern is the spacing between homes. And I think they're saying in some cases there's only 2 feet of space between some of the homes. Is that correct?
That really came just from trying to match Ladysmith, just where we thought that was a worthwhile goal. We are glad to increase that. Ultimately, the homes we envision probably are going to be between 40 and 42 feet wide. So just, we can definitely concede, width here to have wider setbacks on the sides. So again, I think your minimum lot width is about 60 feet. So we're looking to have around a 40-foot home on these to
So let me ask you said the homes are 42 and 40 foot, correct? These are the homes that you've given us for.
Yes, sir. That'd be about the average width.
Typical.
Yes, sir.
1,200 square feet and, well, actually 1,290 and 1,440 is that correct? The
Yes,
square
sir.
footage?
Yes, sir. We would see those as, again, that's just to establish a minimum. So homes could be larger, but that'd be the minimum. That's more to address your concern about architectural standards. So we're fine to codify everything that's listed there on that architectural standard guideline document.
So I guess the standard width of your homes then would be 40 or 42, is that correct?
Yes, sir.
So then that means we would go up in terms of if you needed a larger home, does that mean you would, we would expand lengthwise or would we go, or height?
There's a
You
couple.
can only do two, you can only do one or the other.
Yeah, or deeper. There are some options there, but again, if the concern is 2 feet seems too narrow, if you want to make that 5 feet, 8 feet, even 10 feet, just if there's something that makes the board comfortable, we can acquiesce there, certainly. Our goal was not to cram these in here too tightly. Really, that was just pulling language from Ladysmith Village.
Okay.
Just because we thought that was a worthwhile goal as far as standards, yep.
Thank you. So, and just question again, so this is basically the standard kind of home you would build, the look that
Yeah.
you would, correct?
Yes, sir. And
No,
two,
no brick veneer, just, I see one that has a little stone on the bottom, but.
right, brick veneer
Pretty
would
much.
certainly be permissible. What we tried to establish here is what the minimum would be. So this would be kind of your most basic facade, but these guidelines would preserve that at least this was built.
So if I wanted to build a brick home in this subdivision, that would be permissible.
Yes, sir. What you couldn't do is build a home with, what is it, 35 millimeter thick
35,
vinyl siding that
right.
would instantly warp. That's what we're trying to prevent, is the less quality materials that are going to cause a subdivision to age poorly. So if you want to upgrade and include brick, that certainly would be permissible.
Thank you.
Well, thank you.
Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Forehand?
So the architectural standards that are here, thanks. You and I spoke, and I like this. I think we can go further personally. And I like the 5 foot setbacks instead of 2. That way
Perfect.
there's 10 feet in between for fire purposes. What's the threshold, Mr. Fincham, regarding the upgraded fire barrier for distance? You recall off the top of your head?
I think we need to direct that to Mr. Whiteman.
Okay.
To see if he recalls off the top of his head.
Okay.
So
10 foot. You assume probably so 5 foot.
You said 10 feet though. 10 feet. It's 5 feet from the property line to the structure wall, 10 feet.
So 5 foot minimum setbacks would allow someone to come and do standard construction instead of having to have the fire barrier. Okay, that makes sense. I would like to go with 5 person.
he's doing stone bar.
How do we make sure that this is enforceable from a county standpoint? And this is, I guess, it's to both of you, or to Mr. Emerson. And I apologize, this is my first go around with a development that's not already has this established, so.
The enforceability would be in the conditions that the Board of Supervisors adopts related to approving the requested special exception.
And
The
that,
level of detail, I think, we would need to make sure that, that Mr. Emerson reviews any language related to the details of the housing construction or anything like that, to make sure that we don't run afoul of anything.
Sure.
For example, they've proffered, stone or brick fronts on the
right.
buildings consistent with Ladysmith Village. I think the issue is how far we can go in those discussions and potentially not run afoul of state law. So I think based on discussions, we would want to have those discussions with the attorney to make sure we're on firm footing.
okay. And just to clarify, that would need to be settled before we vote.
you would want that settled before you vote, I would think.
Thank you.
Mr. Thomas, I had one question. Mr. Fincham, normally when we do phasing plans, I thought 50 was the limit per year on most of those. And in their phasing plan, they say no more than 63 lots platted per year or 12 months.
No, phasing plans are varied depending on the size of the project. 50 was was a limit that we established for Brookwood.
I thought it was some other places were 50, and the main reason for that number was to lessen the impact on the school system and other things.
Belmont was what's greater than 50. It was somewhere around 120 some units a year.
Yeah, that was 1,000 years ago, though.
Pendleton, Ladysmith Village all have much higher phaser numbers than 50.
Mr. Emerson's here. Can I ask anything about the phasing plan, Mr. Emerson? Or I should put that grammatically correct. May I ask anything about the phasing plan? I can?
He said, sure.
Okay. Would the applicant be willing to go to 50 per year, and that would make it a 4-year project as opposed to 3, or just on the impact? That's kind of up to you guys. I'm not saying you have to do it. I'm just asking you if you would consider that.
Well, I think for the record, you can ask the applicant, but if the board feels that is a condition that they feel is necessary, then you can impose that limit.
Oh,
this is a special exception
Right.
permit, not a rezoning.
as opposed to rezoning, where I couldn't ask that question.
That's
So,
correct.
see, I'm well trained now, Mr. Emerson. It is. It's the shock therapy that works. So would you be willing to do that?
I can talk for one moment.
Sure. Sure.
Chief Loftus, can you come up for a second, please? Ms. Long, I'll give you the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Underwood. Chief, when houses are in a subdivision, what is the minimum distance fire-wise you want to have between sides of houses without firewalls?
I mean, for me, the greater distance, the better. 2 feet, I can't put a ladder in there. I can't really get personnel in there to function. Even by code, the minimum distance by code is very tight. 5 feet from the property line's tight if you've got a ladder, a second floor window, or something else. So the bigger, the better. Yes, ma'am.
Yes, sir. Just want to act with a consensus as opposed to unilaterally, but we would absolutely acquiesce to 50 as far as that cap on development. We're not trying to push that in any harmful way on the county.
Okay, and in spite of what Mr. Emerson says, I'm not forcing you to do that. I was just asking. There are times when I force things when Mr. Emerson's not around. Okay, thank you.
Mr. Black.
Mr. Fincham?
Yes, sir.
This is not my district, but I travel this road every day, and it's across the street is my district, and we pick up trash on this road. So I've just got a few questions regarding this. If we didn't approve the special exception, what do they by right have a right to do? How many homes, and I think you've mentioned it earlier, but I just want to hear it. How many homes do they have a right to do? I mean, how many new homes could be put in? So they said, you know what, the Board of Supervisors doesn't approve it. How many homes can they go build right now?
They could actually build 112.
They could build 112.
Yes. And
Okay,
probably they could probably squeeze out a few more with redesigning the lot.
Maybe 114, 115. Yeah. And if they were to do that, they would have to use the current, I think it's Bridlewood Lane, right? I mean, the one that's the corner of Ladysmith Road, that all the traffic from those new homes would be coming to that current entrance, correct?
Well, yes. There's also a second entrance that was previously approved where they have it shown. You would not get the density, there would be just a right turn in. So the original approval still approved a second entrance, but it was not the full intersection with the left turn lane and the right turn lane to keep the traffic flowing on 639.
All right, so help me out with this for a second. So they go ahead and build the 112, 115. Currently, it's Bridle, I mean, on turn, it's Bridlewood Lane, right, that you're going into
Yes.
right now?
Yes, sir.
So at the current situation, would still have the, if they build 112, would still have the same intersection,
You
correct?
would still have Bridle Woods as the current intersection.
And you're saying they would have to put in something else at a second entrance? If we didn't approve the SC?
They would put in a right turn lane similar to what we have at Lake Landor,
If you're heading,
westbound.
if you're heading westbound towards Lake Landor, they would have to put in a right turn.
Correct.
Okay.
Now,
So, all right, just follow me here for a second. So now we approve the SC, so now let's go to a different scenario. We approve the SC, so now they can put in 60 more homes, roughly 70 more homes, 75 more homes. But now we have two entrances, correct?
you would have two entrances. You would have, the new entrance would be a full intersection, which would include a left turn lane as you go east towards Ladysmith. The current, one of the issues with the current intersection of Bridle Woods is left turn traffic going in there.
Oh,
There's
yes.
no controlled left turn lane dedicated to that traffic. The density, or well, the lot increase reached a point where it required a left turn lane into Bridle Woods or South Village as part of the project.
Yep.
That left turn lane was not required with your 112 units that they could do right now.
Okay, and Major Mosier? May I ask you a question? Okay.
Yes, sir.
So I don't know if you remember, but back on June 1st, I sent you an email. And I asked you the number of accidents on Ladysmith Road, the current intersection of Bridlewood and Ladysmith Road. Do you remember that email?
Yes, sir.
And I got back from you that there had been, since January 1 of 2017, that there had been 9 accidents at the current intersection.
That's what the CAD showed. Yes, sir.
And does that include just, now let me ask you this, does that include just what you guys, or is that both you and state police?
That's anything that came through our dispatch center. It's very possible that other accidents could have been called directly to the state police
Right.
and would not be a record there.
Okay, I appreciate it. One of the things, and I would just like to say to the board, thank you. One of the things I would like to say to the board is the current residents, and I don't know if Mr. Forehand gets these complaints, but the current residents in Bridlewood are scared to death of that current intersection. And every time we're out picking up trash, right there where that intersection is, we're always picking up car debris. I mean, it's almost very often that we're picking up debris from accidents where people are getting pancaked. I attend Lake Landor board meetings every month, and the board in Lake Landor has come to me and said, what can we do about the intersection, the current intersection with Bridlewood? And VDOT, we have asked VDOT to shave down to get sight distance, and VDOT has worked on it. But in my opinion, by adding a second entrance, you're going to make us, they're going to do us a favor by making that road much safer, and they're going to have to do it. Because right now, where the current entrance is, if you go to that current entrance, it is dangerous on both sides, because you've got a curb coming around from Lake Landor, and then coming the other way, there's not a lot of sight distance coming the other way. If you move that entrance down, which the proposal is, you make that a lot safer for traffic on Ladysmith Road, because that's the residents that are west of Bridlewood have a major concern about coming through that area because cars in Bridlewood can't see them. So if we're making that intersection safer and the developer is doing it, I mean, I'm all for it. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Black. Mrs. Long?
I see Mr. Black's point, although I also will point out you're also looking at adding another 150 cars. I would feel much better about making a decision on this if I could see what was approved 30, 40 years ago, whenever this was, to know what the standards were now and what we're improving to, and seeing that in writing than just having words floating through the air, and bring it back to us at our next meeting for a final decision. I would feel more comfortable making an educated decision that way.
I can bring that to you. I will tell you that there were no standards with the original development, but I'll be more than happy to bring that to you.
So are we talking about written standards also for the current, what they've handed us to be part of the condition?
Yes, I will work with Mr. Emerson on that.
Yeah, that still I would like to see in writing as to what's agreed upon. Thank you. So I would move, gentlemen, that we defer this to our next meeting.
I'll second, so I want to.
There is a motion by Mrs. Long, second by Mr. Forehand, that we defer this special exception 02-2021 until our next meeting, which is October the 10th, which is October 10th. Discussion? 12. That would
12.
October 12th.
Mr. Fincham, do we have to re-advertise this with the changes?
No, sir, this is not a rezone.
Any more discussion on the motion? We'll take a vote. All in favor of deferring till October 12th, say aye. Aye. Any opposed? We will defer this till October 12th. Thank you, board. Agenda item number 5 has been removed. We've already taken care of number 6. Agenda item number 7, discussion on renaming Jeff Davis Highway Route 1. Mr. Fincham.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, you previously, as you recall, the General Assembly adopted a bill that was signed into law by the governor renaming US Route 1 from Jefferson Davis Highway to Emancipation Highway. The bill had a January 1 effective date to allow any locality that wanted to consider an alternative name to adopt that name and forward same to the general or to the Commonwealth Transportation Board before January 1st. At your previous meeting where this was discussed, it was decided that we would have an online vote to look at the road names. And the results of the survey, that online survey, are included in your memorandum from staff. The only additional information that I have for you is that in talking to Mr. Bates at VDOT, he did request that if you wanted to change the street name or come up with your own street name, that he would request that you take that action tonight out of an abundance of caution of getting that request forwarded to the Commonwealth Transportation Board for their review by the end of the year. He indicated that sometimes they like to take off towards the end of the year due to lack of business, and did not want the county to run into that problem if the board chose an alternative name.
Thank you, Mr. Fincham. Board members, any comments?
One last item.
Yeah.
You also have a draft resolution in your packet should you wish to select or adopt an alternative name. If you do so, then that resolution would need to be adopted, and any name chosen by the board would be added to the resolution.
Thank you, Mr. Fincham.
Could I ask Mr. Fincham a question before we get started?
Yes, Mr. Thomas.
Mr. Fincham, it's my understanding that whether we accept the state's name or the General Assembly name, pick a new name, the county still has to buy those signs, right?
Yes, sir.
So with all due respect to Mr. Bates, if I have to still buy those signs, he's not going to put those signs up until I buy. So I'm not really sure that I need to be stressed out about making this decision right now, since whenever I make the decision, I'll buy the sign, right? Sounds logical. He just wants us to get in the Commonwealth Transportation Board schedule.
Well, the issue is the local adoption of a name in lieu of the name adopted by the General Assembly. I think that is the issue.
But in either case, if we say it's going to be Emancipation Highway, which is what the General Assembly said, we still have to buy those signs.
Yes, sir. You also don't have to take any action if that is the name that you desire to go with.
Other than buy the sign.
Other than buy the signs.
Okay, so if I pick another name, I still have to buy the sign. My whole point in this, circular firing squad is basically to say I don't necessarily feel stressed out from Mr. Bates, with all due respect, to make that decision right now.
Right. We will buy the signs, and in all likelihood, Public Works will actually be installing the street signs like they do with the rest of our signs. Yes,
Whenever we buy them.
Right.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Just point of clarification, the 40 responses, although we're not tied to those responses, those were the ones that came into the survey, is that correct? That we had online? That's pretty much a yes or no question.
It is, Mr. Chairman. I was just going to add real quick, since the board packet went out, we had 2 additional responses. Didn't change the result appreciably at all.
My question, Mr. Partner, were these 40 survey responses through the survey?
Yes, there are 42 now. We're up to 42. That's what
only.
I'm saying. Yes, sir.
So that's a yes, thank you. I did receive, Mr. Black, I think you received some also that we probably didn't count, but so there was wasn't an overwhelming large number of responses to this issue. So we did receive.
Now, Mr. Chairman, I think we all, well, just quick math, 40% of 40 responses is 16. So that means 16 people were the ones who voted the most. And I would not say 16 people represent a significant amount of any decision making that Caroline County makes.
Clearly, last time we were here, I believe Chris indicated that it's not a voting matter. It's what this board chooses to do. We asked for input, and that was, I think, the right thing to do. But it should not be the guiding force to determine what we name Route 1. I think it's totally within our purview, and that's a responsibility that we took, and we should make that decision and move forward. I don't think there should be too much delay. I've been ready for a while to discuss it, and if the board is willing, continue to discuss it. But I think at this point, I'd like to see this resolved tonight.
Mr. Chairman,
Yes, ma'am, Ms. Long.
would you like to have it resolved tonight? I think we all would. It's going to be a lot of work on Public Works to get these signs up, and it needs to be done. Of the 40 who did vote, if you add historic US Route 1 to the US Route 1 that was 40%, that's 55%. We are not held to that. I've had several people come up to me and say they liked US Route 1. And it was my suggestion. So I'm going to make a motion that we adopt the resolution and change the name from Jefferson Davis Highway to US Route 1.
I'll second.
There's a motion on the floor that we change the name of Jefferson Davis Highway to historic,
US Route 1.
US Route 1. Is there a second?
Second.
Is there a second?
Ms. Clayton.
By Mr. Forehand. Discussion.
Mr. Finch, quick question.
Jim, oh, go ahead, Ms. Forehand.
On the sides of Route 1 currently, there are small placards that say Jefferson Davis Highway. It's not a road name. It's not a street sign, but it's obviously a VDOT sign. My assumption they're coming down and just not being replaced. And you understand the signs I'm talking
Yeah,
about?
they're markers that reference Jefferson Davis Highway.
Does this even address those?
I don't believe this addresses that. I'm sure that will be addressed at some point in time. But this strictly addresses the name.
Street name.
Yes.
I mean, I don't think more than 15% of the population actually knows who that name represents, but
But shouldn't they come down, if they're VDOT signs, wouldn't those come down also? If they're on the roadway and they're VDOT signs?
Well, if it's a VDOT sign, yes, those signs will come down. Okay. I think there's some other markers out there that are not VDOT signs that I'm not sure that's addressed.
But we can
And
take
I
those.
apologize, Mr. Forehand, if I misunderstood your question. But yes, if they are VDOT identification signs, they will be removed.
That's what I thought.
Yes, ma'am.
I just would note, I think in the, several other localities have renamed their portions of, Route 1 as well. And I know I spoke to people in Northern Virginia about this, I guess, months ago regarding, and there were, I think everybody has their own idea about what they would like to do, but there is any more discussion regarding the motion?
Yeah, I did, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Thomas.
And again, my point was, we got 16 and now we add 6, so we got 22 people saying that's what they wanted. Still not a significant population or portion. And my opinion before, when we first discussed it, was we should have a public hearing. Having said that, I will stick to what I wanted to. I thought, General Assembly name was good. I even contacted Peggy Fortune to see if we could name it Loving Highway, which would be something that would be a great compromise for all of us. And I'd prefer either of those two, but the will of the board is what it is.
All right, so there's any more comment regarding the motion? Hearing none. Call for the vote. Mr. Ford, all in favor of the motion to rename US 1?
Mr. Benjamin has a
Oh,
question.
yes, sir.
And adopt the resolution.
And the adopted resolution, I'm sorry, it's in the adopted resolution is in the packet.
It was in her motion. It was in Nancy's motion.
Was it in your motion?
Yeah, she
Yeah,
said
okay.
and adopt the resolution.
And adopt the resolution
With the new name.
with the new name. And the new name again is US Route 1. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Nay. There is a division in the House. Mr. Forehand, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Black, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Seeley, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mrs. Long, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mr. Thomas, how do you vote?
I vote nay.
And I vote nay as well. Motion carries 4-2. Agenda item number 8, discussion of potential fiscal year 2021-22 VDOT revenue sharing project.
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, your next item is simply an inquiry from staff as to whether the board is interested in pursuing a potential revenue sharing project through the Commonwealth Transportation Board. I identified a couple of potential projects. Certainly, the board may have other projects that they might be interested in. The criteria for the revenue sharing program was included in your staff report. Basically, each individual project can be awarded up to $1 million, in which the General Assembly will match the county on a dollar per dollar basis. The total number or the total award amount for a locality is $5 million, again, on a dollar per dollar match basis. I will tell you that this is a very competitive program. They have 4 tiers of projects by which they evaluate these requests. And those tiers are very competitive. It starts with projects that have already been awarded revenue sharing funds. They look at whether the project meets a V-Trans requirement, or whether it, for example, is in a corridor of statewide significance, like Route 1 or Route 207 might fit within that category. And then those tiers work down. From previous experience in the program, there are very few projects that make it down to Tier 3 and virtually no projects in Tier 4. So we would have to craft a project that I think in its lowest tier was a project that was in a corridor of statewide significance or met some other V-Trans standard. With that, I'll answer any questions that the board may have. We can discuss, ideas that staff put out there, or any other ideas that the board may have.
Thank you, Mr. Fincham. Board have any comments regarding the possible revenue sharing projects, or is it something that we would?
In light of what we've spent on broadband here recently, I don't know that we've got $1 million to go out and do a matching grant. Just my thoughts at this time, still waiting to see what broadband does and what else we might have to do, but we have sunk $3.5 million into broadband here in the last month and a half.
Committed.
Well, committed, granted, but it is money we've put into that account to say that we're all on board to actually go off and do those things. Just my thoughts.
Thank you, Mr. Sealy. Mrs. Long?
We have to come up with 50%, and the only one I thought, the smallest one that might be beneficial, but I don't know how it would come out, was actually started, I believe, by Mr. Forehand, which was the idea of doing a walkway and a crosswalk between the high school and the middle school, and hooking up with our walking trail, which is now going to extend over to the other side of the road for safety purposes. Is that something that would score? There was a time when they were really into this pedestrian walking, biking thing.
It didn't score with our smart scale process because it wasn't designated as being within a corridor of statewide significance. They actually changed the criteria between the first or the second smart scale round and the third smart scale. So a project that qualified under a previous cycle did not qualify this last time because of changing criteria. I can't definitively tell you that it's going to meet their scoring criteria, but that is the one project which VDOT staff has already spent some time on during Smart Scale to help develop that project. So of all the potential projects, that probably has the most work that's already been put into the project by VDOT.
That was the one that jumped out at me, but I will see what everybody else thinks.
Thank you, Mr. Long. Mr. Thomas?
Yes, sir. Thank you. Mr. Fincham, what's the difference between these revenue sharing projects and the big road revenue sharing projects like 639? That was smart scale.
That is
639.
that is smart scale, and revenue sharing was a component of that project.
But we do have, and I know we've discussed this and done this before, at any point in time, the county could go to VDOT and say, here's X amount of money for a road project. And VDOT would normally match that based on revenue sharing or a project that they'd already identified.
They would include it in a 6-year plan. And then with the county money, if there are any funds available in our 6-year secondary road plan, they
Okay.
could match those funds with whatever the county commits to a project.
Okay.
You could look at larger revenue sharing projects in the future.
Right.
If we identify them and actually include them in our 6-year secondary road plan, then that's
Right.
one of the standards that you tick off and helps it, the larger projects qualify.
So, I mean, my opinion would be, these are all, wonderful, nice projects, but my opinion would be that we use our revenue sharing dollars on projects that could possibly bring us business and economic revenue. So that's just where I stand on, I'd love to do all these things, but I'd love more, if there's such a phrase, to be able to do things that bring the county some sort of revenue.
Thank you, Mr. Thomas. When did we learn about the revenue sharing project with VDOT?
The initial application, there's actually several different levels of applications. We actually learned about the revenue sharing, our radar, mid to late summer. The initial focus was on projects that would be regional projects, so we were looking at that. We didn't think that there were any regional projects at our level that required significant, much higher investment at the board level.
Right.
So once we got past that, then we started looking at other these smaller local projects.
My concern is that it says that the application is due on the 15th of October.
Yes, sir. Again,
I don't think
knowing the financial, we
Right.
didn't have a lot of money
Yeah.
sitting, actually sitting around.
Understand.
Yeah.
I would like to see more thought be able to be given to revenue sharing. I don't think it's enough time, but that's just my comment. Any other board members have any more comments before we?
I just got one question. Mr. Fincham, on the smart scale, I understand what Mr. Thomas was saying, but don't they, like projects that involve safety, isn't that still rated pretty high as far as when it's alleviated, or you're doing something that's going to make traffic flow safer, or you put it in, isn't that still like one of the top priorities for VDOT?
Safety is still a high priority.
Yes. And then
It based upon our success, there were some changes to the smart scale process.
sure.
That probably have, I don't want to say diminished, but maybe watered down that aspect a little bit as a standalone project.
Because when we did the project on Childsburg, we didn't put any money in, and that was a
And
safety project. And
yes.
They fully
Yes.
funded it. The state
Yes.
fully funded it.
That's correct.
So, I mean, is there a way, because on those projects that we did, VDOT actually, and I know that GWRC, they do the same thing. They help you rate the projects and score them. Is there a way that we could get some help on like how these projects would score, and then come back to the board?
We can do that. My suggestion would be that if you want to do that, we look at one or two of the projects out of the list or another project and not try to get them to score, all 5 projects. I think that would be
Well, and I understand that because we used to, and here's the thing, because at GWC, we discuss this all the time. And we used to do, when Smart Scale first started, we took a different approach than the other jurisdictions. We took the rifle approach. We would pick 1 or 2 projects and we would say, all right, we're going all in on this, where Stafford and King George, they were going with a shotgun approach. We're just going to throw projects against the wall and see what sticks. And at first, the rifle approach really worked for us. In the past couple of years, it has not. They're funding projects up in Fredericksburg and King George and so forth that are pedestrian and bike and have nothing to do really with traffic.
Yes.
Yeah, but they are multi-jurisdictional. Remember, King George and Spotsylvania and Stafford. That's
not
what I
all of them,
saw
though.
last
Wait,
night.
gentlemen, let me come back to what's before us. What's before us is the funding for, do we want to move forward with looking at spending money for these projects? My concern here is I think we stay here, not with, in terms of discussion, but have we looked at these projects? Or these are just projects put before? I don't think we've spent enough time to give a definitive answer, because I think there are other projects that could be worthy of discussion as well, but we're discussing these
Before you do one of these,
because they were put before us.
before you do any of these projects, so Mr. Under, what you want to do is you want to see if it's worthwhile going forward with, as far as if it's gonna score well at VDOT, because us going forward with any project that's gonna score poorly, it's not worth us.
But we should holistically look at any project, not just these. If we're going to do this, we should look at projects that we believe are worthy of the dollars of the taxpayers, and look at all the projects, not just look at a list of, this is the first time I've seen these projects tonight.
We knew it would be a heavy lift this time to actually get an application in for revenue share.
And
We're not gonna make it by October 15th in any way, shape, or form.
right.
Yeah, and that's what's concerning to me, Mr. Fincham, because the other jurisdictions they have their projects ready to go. And what was the last Smart Scale that we got?
Charlesburg,
Charlesburg was the last Smart Scale we got.
last one approved, yes, sir.
We're losing state money every year.
Well, no,
We're
I don't think
losing. What's happening here is we're losing because we don't have projects ready to go. And when it comes to September and we're trying to scramble and we're going to discuss something in September, it's too late.
It's actually October.
Yeah.
But the reality, again, that's my comment, Mr. Black, and we can beat this, but what's before us is, do we want to apply for this? And the answer now, to me, is we're not prepared. But it speaks to that we need to prepare, have a list of projects that this board has discussed, and when a revenue sharing proposal or application comes up, then we're ready for a small scale, medium-sized scale, or large scale project. That would make sense to me, rather than just jump on. That's.
Now, Mr. Chairman,
Yes,
I could
Mr.
kind of,
Thomas.
and it may be semantics, but I don't think we're not applying because we're not prepared. I mean, in my opinion, we're not applying because of several other things. Like, one is financially, we're not sure
We're not prepared financially yet.
Well, I mean, we have the money.
Well,
It's not, we don't want to make that investment. That's what I'm saying. That's the difference between not prepared and not wanting to do. And that's really the difference that I'm trying to highlight. We're all right in the fact that we should have projects that we're looking at. We should be looking at certain intersections and bridges and things for Smart Scale every year or every other year. That's being more prepared, and that's what you're saying. So I'm just trying to bring those couple of things out. I'm not trying to, debate anything.
oh, absolutely.
We actually thought that we had two good smart scale projects with this last cycle that we didn't score well on at all, based on preliminary input from VDOT at that time.
Right.
So,
See, I just think we need to take all the information that we have and develop projects that, when you read the synopsis of what they say, are things that we missed that caused us to score not as well as some other places, that we take those things into consideration and let that be the standard by which we look at projects to help us and hopefully score a project that we can work together with. That's mine.
Well,
Mr. Chairman.
maybe, it's like when you lose the Super Bowl,
Right.
you start planning for the next Super Bowl right away. So
I agree.
maybe we should start right now planning for quarterly reviews of what projects we want to do. And if we want to do them, because, my opinion, again, these are all nice projects, but I want a project that's going to give me some revenue.
Mr. Black, you had, or Mr. Forehand, excuse me.
Yeah, we have an opportunity to apply, and at least two of these, actually, all of these have been on the radar. Well, maybe not the last one, at least not to me, but the intersection of Route 1 and Lake Caroline has been an issue since before I was on the board. The intersection at Lake Landor has been an issue since before I was on the board. The Ladysmith sidewalk improvements or pedestrian safety improvements, when I first came on the board 6 years ago, I brought this up again, probably 2 or 3 other times since. There are people that walk from Campbell's Creek, that walk from the trailer court, that walk to the food line, and literally they're walking in the road in some places because there is nowhere else to walk. There's a big giant embankment. We had a person killed on Route 1 and not in the not so distant past from being struck by a vehicle. If these are new, then we're not listening, because we've talked about all of these, and we have the opportunity to apply or not to the crosswalks. If we're getting matching funds, it really can't cost but so much. The sidewalk, I know, will cost some because there'll be some right of way, but we have Tractor Supply, we have Advance Auto, we have other development coming along, and it's just basically going to be filling in between the areas that already have a sidewalk slated to go there once the thumbs up is given. So it is something that I think it would be remiss not to at least throw 1 or 2 of these projects in the application process. And then, like Mr. Thomas said, let's work hard on looking at a list of others. If there are projects out there that haven't been brought forward as an issue, then that's a problem. Let's get them out in the open and compare them to what we already know where we have problems, which there are 5 listed here.
I can give you 5 more.
And I know of 0 of them.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm saying. We haven't discussed them, but there are other issues that are just as important. If you look at Carmel Church and some of the issues there, which is a major hub for us, we could do some things there to improve that area in terms of tractor trailer and pedestrian and automobile traffic. So I think we need a comprehensive conversation, rate these things, and then apply. I don't agree with just say, here's 6 projects. Yeah, we've had some type of conversation, but nothing meaningful to the point that we said, we're going to put this up. Next time there's money available to share, we're going to put this project up. We've never had that discussion.
Right. And
people get killed all over the county.
That could be a work session, but if we don't apply, right, we've wasted another year, not throwing anything towards.
No, I said, have a work meet, have a discussion about it. We haven't done so.
But more to the point is, we've got to match the dollars. And I don't know that with what we've done with broadband, I don't know that we have $1 million right now to match any of these grants. And if you got a grant for $1 million, where would the money come from?
Yeah, I don't think any of these, well, at least
I mean, we
the
don't
two.
know.
Yeah, but the intersections are gonna be expensive.
The intersection at Lake Carolina, I've heard upward of $12 million to do that.
Maybe we could talk to the schools about the sidewalks going from the high school to the park.
Or we go buy a stencil and some asphalt paint, and go,
Yeah, I mean, during our meeting, we got a meeting with them next month. That's one we could talk
but some
about.
of these projects are not expensive. I mean, I don't have to worry about forking up $500,000 to draw sidewalks in the road, or, crosswalks. Now, the sidewalk, you know, it might cost $1 million to run it all the way down there, and we split that halfway, then so be it. But, anyway, that's my thoughts on it.
Mr. Underwood, if I could.
Mrs. Long? Yes.
Yes, just let me clarify, this is not smart scale. This is the revenue sharing, and there are a couple of other programs. So maybe what we really need is more of a calendar from VDOT so we can prepare for when all these different applications are done. I am terrible with dates. I didn't realize that the deadline, I'm not sitting at home thinking revenue sharing applications are due. I need to call Charlie or planning and see what we're doing on it. So perhaps we could get sort of a master plan calendar for the VDOT grants and a short outline as to what they're for and our portion of revenue needed, be it 50 or 25 or free.
Staff will do whatever this board decides. There's 4 votes to apply, then that's what it takes to move this forward. If not, then it won't happen. I mean, it's fairly simple for me. You take the vote. If you feel strongly about it and you think staff can do it, which that's your vote. But I think there are a lot of things that we can do afterwards, but I just think we need to take the vote. If you want to look at the revenue sharing projects and say this is a revenue sharing project that we want to move forward with, then we talk about that and we say, let's apply. Certainly can't do all 6 that are here in the book, so we'd have to prioritize those projects. We'd have to come up with I'm sure, some kind of dollar amount that we'd be willing. I think it's $1 million, right, Mr. Fincham, was up to
$1 million per project, yes, sir.
Yeah, so we'd have to say that we're willing to have $1 million set aside for the project. And to me, it just seems like we're flying by the seat of our pants. But whatever this board wants to do in terms of making that decision, I'll take the motion, I'll take the second, and we'll take a vote.
Mr. Underwood, I would
Yes, Ms.
move
Long.
that we not make an application this year. Personally, I think asking staff to put in a respectable grant application in 15 days basically is asking too much of anyone. And that we do book a work session so we can get some of the projects in our districts out and maybe spend some time discussing them and prioritizing them. That would be my preference and motion.
So there's a motion by Ms. Long that we not apply for or take part in the revenue sharing projects for this year, but we instead put it on our calendar to have a work session to discuss rev share projects. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Mr. Sealy. All in favor, say aye.
Discussion.
Discussion?
Discuss. The project number 1, the safety improvements at the school and park. The maps are drawn, the layout's done. It's already been submitted the work's there. Work's already done. It will be an easy submit. I recognize that as much as I would like the sidewalk one to be submitted as well, the legwork has not been done. However, the one at the top of the page, the legwork has essentially been completed on that. So I think that's an easy one to submit and not really wasting anyone's time submitting an application.
Thank you, Mr. Forehand.
You mean the pedestrian?
Any more?
Pedestrian access one?
The crosswalks at the park, between the 2 schools and the park.
What's that?
That went through a Smartsville process before.
That's basically crosswalk, yeah.
Okay. Any more discussion regarding the motion?
Yeah, I think that we're, and I'm fine. I mean, if we don't spend money this year, but we are gonna have to do, it's frustrating to go to the GWRC and see that, I know that we're in and broadband is very important, but it's frustrating when you see other counties doing revenue sharing, or, you know, you see the list, King George is doing this, Stafford is doing this, Spotsylvania is doing this, and we have nothing. So I would think that we're gonna have to come up with some projects next year, because we're leaving money on the table from the state, whether it be smart scale or revenue sharing, we're leaving money on the table that could help us. And, to leverage, and I'm sure we all have projects, and that's fine, we all do. But I would hope that next year, when it comes to this time, we're not in September, and we're saying, oh, smart scale is 3 weeks away, or revenue sharing is 3 weeks away, and we don't have anything. So I would hope that whenever a supervisor says, hey, we want a project, that every supervisor gets the projects that they feel is necessary, and then we can have a discussion. Because we're leaving money on the table.
The purpose of our work session, Mr. Black, is to have discussions about those very issues regarding revenue sharing programs. That's why I stated that we should have those, and part of Ms. Long's motion is to have those meetings and that we prepare. And I think we should be prepared. Any other discussion?
And Mr. Underwood, I would
Yes, Ms. Long.
modify my motion to include Mr. Forehand's desire for an application if Mr. Fincham says they can get the application done. That cannot be $1 million project. That wouldn't cost us that much. We pay 50% of whatever the project is, correct?
Correct.
Could you get it done by the 15th? Truthfully, honestly, I know how busy you all are.
We can get the application prepared and submit it to VDOT. We can also check with GWRC to see if they'll, as suggested, pre-scope it for us to see where that
Probably
fits.
looking, what, a year out before they make a decision?
And we can come back at your October 12th meeting and let you know whether all the parties are comfortable with the application, since it's not due until the 15th.
Would that be acceptable? Is that?
Well, there's a motion and a second, Ms. Long, and your motion was to not apply. That means that Mr. Sealy would have to
modify.
amend his second. Mr. Sealy would have to amend his second, and your motion would be then to, would you rescind your? Only do one out the other. Right, only do one out the others. That's what you're saying?
Right.
Apply for the, so you have to rescind your motion, your first motion.
Do we even have a cost for this, Mr. Fincham, on what we think this is gonna cost?
No, but
Okay, so we don't.
no.
I mean, well,
But he
Matt,
can bring it back to us on the 12th before he files it.
He can bring it back.
I was just trying to get.
Yeah, we're not committed. This is not like Smart Scale where we're kind of committed, right? At the 12th, you're not gonna submit anything.
At the 15th, we would be committed if it was approved.
But the 12th, when you come back to the board meeting, you're gonna say, it costs $75, do you wanna do it? And we'll say yes. If you say it costs
Correct.
$5 million, we'll say no, we're not committed.
Correct.
okay, so Mr. Sealy, are you okay with it?
I will amend my second.
All right, so now there's a motion on the floor by Mrs. Long, second by Mr. Sealy, that we apply for the revenue sharing project, and the revenue project would be the pedestrian access and safety improvements for Caroline High School / Middle School County Park. And not any others, right? Is there a second? And Mr. Sealy?
I'll amend my second.
And second by Mr. Sealy. Any more discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
All say nay. Nay. Division in the House. Mr. Forehand, how do you?
Aye.
Forehand votes aye. Mr. Black?
Aye.
Mr. Black votes aye. Mr. Sealy?
I'll vote aye.
Mr. Sealy votes aye. Ms. Long?
Aye.
Ms. Long votes aye. Mr. Thomas?
Vote aye.
Mr. Thomas votes aye, and I vote nay. 5-1, motion carries. Thank you, gentlemen.
And lady.
Informational calendar, Mr. Cully?
Mr. Chairman, members of the board, we are already at the end of September with the fair, moving on through this weekend, finishing up on the 3rd. The 11th is a state holiday. We meet on the 12th of October, and remember, that one has a 4:30, note the time, 4:30 joint meeting with the school board in the EOC. 12. 12.
Please be on time.
Please show up.
4:30 in the EOC, and we're gonna recess out of this meeting to that
Correct.
4:30 meeting, please. Harvest Festival is on the 16th, which is that following Saturday, and we have confirmed the Frog Level Festival is Saturday, the 30th of October as well. Yes. Chief confirmed. Yes, it's confirmed.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Somebody left.
Closing board.
We need to set a date to actually meet with
Solar.
the solar. We've got to read whatever has been prepared.
Is that,
Yes, I was supposed to bring that up, sorry.
is that public or?
It to be
closed
closed
meeting?
session,
Is that closed meeting?
closed session.
I thought it was negotiations, so it was closed meeting.
Yeah, I thought it was closed session, but you got to still have a meeting to go into closed session.
Should do it at the meeting.
Yeah, it's with the attorneys to go over, attorneys and staff to go over line by line, the potential.
Okay.
But since it's a contract negotiation, it's not a public open meeting.
No, closed
Right.
session.
So do we do that as part of our meeting on the 12th?
No, they wanted longer. That was the problem. They thought it was going to take a couple hours. So we want a special meeting, but you'll be held in closed session. As soon as we can.
What's wrong with the week of the 4th through the 8th?
I don't have a problem.
4th, 5th, 6th, 7th, or 8th?
We can't move that.
If we don't do it that week, then we'd have to go to the 13th would be the next possible date. If we don't do it the 4th, 5th,
Alright,
6th, 7th, or 8th,
8.
then we'd have to do it on the 13th. Wait, the 8th is a Friday. I'm not- All right, so then it would be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, or Thursday, the 4th through the 7th. Thursday? Jeff, you say Tuesday?
Thursday, I'm okay with that.
Thursday?
Thursday the 7th?
Thursday the 7th.
Well, that's board packet day.
It sure is.
We can't go
So-
to the.
So what I got?
Can we do the 26th?
Yeah.
The 26th of what?
October was the 4th Tuesday. That we know that night, I think is good with the attorney.
That
Oh,
works
is it
for
good
me
with the
if you
attorney?
have it
I
after
thought you said
GFF.
as soon as possible.
I know, but I just talked to, it's in October when the attorney can do it. I don't want to set a night that the attorney's already at some other meeting.
Side, but that's good.
Miss-
All right.
Mr. Cully,
follow
I'll
Tuesday.
just be late because we have social services here that night. So I'll join you all as soon as I get there.
You have that social services on the 4th Tuesday?
Mhm.
I thought you meant on
Because we have a 4th Tuesday meetings
It's Tuesday,
regular.
isn't it?
It's a 4th.
It's the 4th,
1,
28th.
It should be our normal night.
Yeah, we got it.
Our normal night, we don't normally meet that night, but it's our normal 4th Tuesday.
okay. I must have my calendar marked wrong. Thank you.
I was
All right,
saying that
so-
hadn't been a conflict before, so that's why I was.
All right. So
questioning.
great. So to accommodate
Great.
Mr. Emerson, we will meet on the 26th of October.
It's not Ben, it's Chris.
All right. I was messing with you. Is everyone okay with October, little levity?
No,
Is October 26th at 6 o'clock? Is that good enough for
We'll do that.
council?
and we will confirm that and we'll recess out of the 12th meeting to that meeting.
Right, okay. Thank you, Mr. Cullen. So we will
No, thank
meet, with solar on
We gotta put you on
October
notice to the-
26th at 6 o'clock.
We'll have a closing board time.
Um, Closing board comments, Mr. Forehand.
I'll pass this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Black.
I look forward to smart scale discussion on projects.
Mr. Black looks forward to smart scale discussion on projects. Okay. Mr. Sealy.
I have none, Mr. Chairman.
Ms. Long.
I have none.
Mr. Thomas.
I do have one, Mr. Chairman, I forgot to mention during my opening board comments. Last Friday, I went to Ladysmith Village, and I attended what was called their Jamaica Day. And there's a restaurant called the Taste of Trelawney, and they set up a food truck at the event. And it was a wonderful event, well attended. So I was happy to see how they live on the other side of the county.
Well, that was good, Mr. Thomas. And I have no comments. Motion to recess to our 4:30.
Mr. Thomas, was that the Caribbean night Saturday?
Yes. Okay. You know, Caribbean Jamaican, wasn't sure what the official name, but it was very well attended, a lot of people there.
I make a motion, we recess to 4:30 on the 12th of October in the EOC
For a joint meeting.
for a joint meeting with the school board.
Can I get a second?
Second.
Motion and proper second that we recess till 4:30 on the 12th with our joint meeting with school board. All in favor, say aye.
Aye,
Opposed?
doesn't matter.
All right, we are recessed.